Le Monde, to another Coffee Buddies. It's a marathon. I think this is about our 120th, and they get better and better, and the topics get more and more varied. So this week we've done target identification and how to do thermal shift assays to measure proteins, which was a lot of fun. And today we're doing another lot of fun, which is a completely different question. And that's why we love these sessions so much. And today our session is with collaboration with our good friends at SwissBio, in particular Michael, who maybe we can get just to say a couple of words in a minute. But it's all about how in this new world that is in front of us can, I suppose, ecosystems work together. And this is part 2 of our discussions about ecosystems between Switzerland and UK. And I mean, there's this great book called the Geography of Genius, and maybe 2 great geniuses of biotech have been the UK and Switzerland. And what we're interested in is, with all the changes that are going on, and I hate to use the word beginning with B because we're all fed up with it, but with the changes that have occurred and the geopolitical changes in China, in the US, the world is changing around us. The question is how can the UK and Switzerland work together pragmatically towards something which is different? And I worked for Roche for 16 great years, so I've got a real vested interest in connection with Switzerland. So we've got a fantastic group of people to talk to us today, or to be the goldfish bowl that we can listen to and then become informed, entertained and engaged. But Michael, maybe just from SwissBio, you could just say hello and introduce yourself to those who don't know you.
Sure, thank you, Tony. Yeah, formally I'm the CEO of the Swiss Biotech Association. Naturally, when we read about Brexit, when we see all the activities emerging since Brexit finally was materializing, we are very curious to see what it means, what opportunities it offers. When I saw and got to know Graham and yourself, I appreciate the power of the Coffee Buddies format, and I specifically wanted to test the water, whether this could be a nice format to have this discussion, not at the governmental level, because we see a lot of formal and informal statements that the 2 countries should work together more now that there are opportunities to exploit. But frankly, my personal experience has always been that it's the people that drive the change. And I know a number of people based in Switzerland that have certainly a deep understanding of both cultures on both sides of the channel. I personally have been flying back and forth during my investment banking time more than during my biotech time, but I know that many of our companies work intensively in a global scheme and more specifically in tight collaborations with UK partners. So I'm really looking to this team of people to share thoughts, to see how we could take concrete steps to strengthen the collaboration between the 2 countries, to maybe establish some platforms, open up channels, from a practical side, how we can do that. And I see that my friend and colleague Fabio is just joining us. He's the latest extension of the SwissBio team, and of course I see a number of faces. We work together since many years. I know Chris Howie, we've met pretty much at every bio conference in the last years. Peter Greaney, I just mentioned that we had a wonderful panel in the WuXi forum with Chris this week, and many of you will have a direct connection. Sarah, we just talked earlier this week as well, and Helen, of course, we are preparing for a joint effort on the Swiss Biotech Day on September 7th. So I'll leave it at that. And
I think fantastic, Michael, and I think as you've just alluded, then there's a very, very strong connection between many of us here. So we can have, I think, more of open discussion. And let's introduce the people who are going to sort of stir up the conversation. And let's start with Helen, who I've only just met. But Helen, maybe you could introduce yourself and say who you are, what you do, and you've got an interesting background, I know.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, pleased to meet everybody. I'm Helen. I work for the UK's Department for International Trade, and I'm based in the British Embassy in Bern. And my role is really, as Tony has put it to me, connector-in-chief. So I'm a first point of contact for Swiss companies in the life sciences sector, among others, looking to the UK, looking to invest in the UK, looking to set up there, grow there, expand. But also I work with my colleagues in the embassy on the political, the diplomatic side, all those bilateral discussions, linking in with UK and Swiss policy, as well as with my colleagues who work for UK trade, helping connect UK companies into Switzerland to do more activities here. And with my science and innovation network colleagues. So that's all to do with the research and innovation collaborations that go on between the UK and Switzerland, making sure that that continues. And my role really is to listen. So I'm quite not used to talking because I generally, I'm from a business development background. I've owned my own company, not at all in the life sciences sector. I've lived in Switzerland for over 20 years now, and I have British and Swiss nationality. So I feel quite passionately about both countries and about the potential in both countries. And I think that is my, what I bring to my role is to listen to Swiss companies who are looking to the UK and see what they do, where they can best be connected into the UK, who they need to talk to, make sure that they get noticed. So if they're a startup, if they have an innovative device or solution, make sure that gets seen, that it finds its place in the UK. If they need help with funding or introductions to the right people, that happens. And then make sure that Swiss companies understand UK policy and where it's going, and so I listen to what they want to do there.
And if we use the Malcolm Gladwell's tipping point, he said there are three types of people. I've just remembered, looked what they were to remind myself. Connectors. You need maverns, who are information specialists, and salespeople who persuade. Maybe I can introduce Tim now, who I would put in the salesman sort of character, because maybe tipping point is what we're talking about here. How do you tip the point that actually the UK and Switzerland work together in a different way? So we've got a connector. Now I'm going to find a salesperson. Tim, maybe you could introduce yourself.
Thanks, Tony, and it's nice to know what I am, at least from your perspective.
From my perspective, you're definitely a salesperson, Tim.
It may have taken me 27 years in the sector, which is not as long as you, of course.
But I've known you nearly all those 20 years.
We've known each other that long. Yeah. I think you've got me in the right camp there. And with my own personal experience, I work very successfully across both territories. And so I've had that experience of having founded a company which we set up a subsidiary in the UK and a holding company in Switzerland, in Schaffhausen, and we had a wonderful 3 or 4 years doing that. So I've got a very positive view, which perhaps answers your question around, can these territories work together? From my own experience, the answer is yes. And that's just one example. So to my mind, I'm very keen to hear more from every participant and to explore other opportunities. But you come from with me coming from a sales perspective, and the answer is yes.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to introduce my third person, who's a very nice man. I like him. He's called Peter, Peter Greaney. And Peter is, maybe I'm going to put you for the purposes of this debate. I'm going to call Helen the connector, Tim the salesperson. Peter, you can be the information specialist, because I think that's because if we're going to get to this tipping point, we need you three. So Peter, what do you do? What's your place in the world? Peter, are you frozen? Oh no, you're there, but you're on mute, my friend.
Yeah, you got to take yourself off mute. That's it.
I thought you had control then, Tony.
No, I don't have control of anything. Only Graham has.
Good to meet you on. First of all, I like being in the nice guy bucket. That was very nice of you. So yeah, I'm Pete Greaney. My current role is I'm head of corporate development for a company called ADC Therapeutics. We're developing therapeutics in the oncology arena. As you can tell by my accent, I'm from the UK. But I've been outside of the UK for almost 2 decades now, and lived in multiple different countries. But I've spent a lot of time between Switzerland and the UK, and indeed, those 2 territories can work very, very well together. I think they're real powerhouses in the biotech, pharma industry. And ADC Therapeutics itself actually has, headquartered in Switzerland, but has laboratories, and our research unit is in London. And as a side note, and Helen knows this, but we just are moving into a new premise there. So we really still believe in the opportunities in the UK and great scientists that are there. So it's going to be a very interesting discussion around the B word and any impact that may have on those future interactions between the UK and Switzerland in the industry.
So Peter, thank you so much. So I mean, let's stir it up a bit. So if you imagine Switzerland and the UK are unencumbered by being connected too deeply in one club now. They're on their own, so they sit on the fringe. So what is it that will be the future? And and I go back to the concept of tipping point. How do we tip the stories so that these 2 territories, and I don't like to even call them territories, because I think in today's world we almost all live in the cloud. We don't really live in any geography. Certainly in COVID, we don't live in any geography. So how do the ecosystems work together? How can we make it? What's the practical things that we can do to try and make it work? Helen, it's your job to do this as the connector. So tell us how the connector does it.
Yeah, thanks. So it's all down to me then.
Oh no, you're only one of 3.
Helen, you'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, I do see that Switzerland and the UK have a kind of shared approach in a lot of different areas, and that goes back a really long way. I mean, I don't know how many of you go skiing in Zermatt, but I love to go up there, and I see, the connection with the Brits who went skiing there, and I see, in the space sector, the research collaborations that have gone on for a really long time, and that shared history. I think both countries see the other one as a partner, pragmatic partner, like you say, on the fringes, looking towards the EU, but also looking elsewhere, and proudly independent. And so I feel like the synergies have already go back quite a long way. And so in some ways, if I compare to what my colleagues have to do in other markets around the world, I don't, somewhere it's, no, honestly. My job is a pretty easy one compared to some of my colleagues, in that I don't really often have to sell the UK to Swiss companies or vice versa, because everybody gets it, it's already there. So I think in terms of answering your question, we have a really good base, we have a really good foundation, whether that's in academia, whether it's in the finance space, whether it's in commercial activities. And so we have a really good starting point to build on. So I think it's really important to kind of look at what we already have and what's already going on, and then work to extend that. I don't see that there's a big challenge of having to start from scratch, or like there's nothing going on. I mean, Michael, you I know that you're a big fan of the UK, and you see a lot of synergies there already, and have done for quite a while.
Well, if we go, back to if I go to Tim, the salesman, it features and benefits. So there's a lot of features about working together, but what's the benefit?
Well, I think to my mind that speaks to what I've personally experienced, which I alluded to earlier. So in terms of finishing off my introduction, which will give you a flavour from where I'm coming from, although I spent 15 years in big pharma, the last 12 or so have been in biotech. And so as biotech executives, we all know it's often about finding money, finding investment, and or finding partnerships. And often those are without frontiers. But of course, when you think about certain countries, then you can think of certain strengths that you naturally are drawn to. In Switzerland, one thinks, of course, the obvious big pharma presence. I'm sure we've all had the visits to various large cities in Switzerland asking for collaborations and investment with mixed success. On the other hand, there are investors as well. So on one hand, looking to sell a technology for investment or a partnership, one is naturally drawn to those aspects of Switzerland. On the other hand, I've got a collaboration, which I don't think is public domain, but we work with a group on the central nervous system disease area within Switzerland from the academic side. There's also that strength as well. And I think in many ways, that mirrors what the UK also offers. Clearly a lot of academic strength, translationally very strong. Obviously, we're perhaps a little bit lacking in larger companies that stay the course, but you can see some natural affiliations and perhaps with better frameworks above that.
Is that a good point that you've just raised there, Tim? That I mean, if I was, you know, it always feels to me like mature companies in Basel, not so many mid farmers in the UK, but maybe more mid farmers in the US. So maybe there's an intergenerational ecosystem in the US that is really missing in our two countries. And is there something you can do to get that? Tim, what's your thoughts?
I think it's a capital question as much as anything else, isn't it? Having access to the appropriate capital to take companies with valuations of hundreds of millions to billions. And perhaps that's a common problem within the UK and Switzerland that the US has addressed. And perhaps better collaboration could provide the sources of capital with confidence that certain countries and territories can collaborate more effectively to grow companies. The example Pete's given, and that I also experience having, you know, foots in both countries for the obvious advantages, as you asked about benefits, capital, large pharma, collaborations across with innovation and drug translational skills, which the UK is very rich in, of course. I think there's all the elements are there, but capital is certainly the piece that we've all talked about for a long time, which is lacking at the levels to get those unicorn companies to be built and to stay.
And when you, I mean, moving to Peter, I mean, Peter, just, you know, when you're sitting in Switzerland and you look at the UK, what do you see? Other than Walthamstow.
Zermatt and St. Moritz.
Yeah.
Building on what Tim said, I think there's another key component here, and that's cultural elements, right? And I like the way this conversation is going as we think about the strength that could be that could come from the combination of Switzerland and the UK, and how that can actually compete, quite frankly, with the US. And I think, you know, I spent several years in the US, and a learning for me was, and I don't, at the risk of tarring all of Europe with the same brush, that's not my intention here, we're all different. But there's a culture in the US of, if you have an idea, people jump up and down and try and sell the value story, and that raises capital, and that, you know, that builds the company big time and, you know, very fast. If you flip to more of a typical European culture, you see you need to build up a stronger sort of confidence in people, relationships, before you get, let's take an example of an academic idea, of a science idea in an academic institute, to extract that into something of real value and build a business. It's a different process, at least in my experience. Now, flipping to the subject matter here of the UK and Switzerland, there's a bit more of a commercial mentality, I think, and again, I'm generalizing, so apologies for that, but I think there's a bit more of a commercial mentality of these two cultures. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there for like-mindedness between the cultures to really extract those scientific ideas and build them into, you know, successful companies and grow them like you see in the US. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. But I think the question is, you know, to use the IT analogy, what's the platform we all need to sit on to make that happen? And maybe we'll go round the round again. Where's Helen? Have I lost Helen? Oh, there's Helen. Helen, I mean, what's the platform that we can all, because I think that's a very good point. I think that is the point really, Peter, that that to get to the tipping point, we've got to decide who is it we're going to take on, really, and is it the US in life sciences, because possibly that is it, and because it would be nice that everybody's North Star was not heading towards the States, the North Star was heading towards Switzerland or the UK. But Helen, maybe your comments on that.
Yeah, I mean, I see we've talked about finance quite a bit, and it seems to me that it's fairly obvious that we've got the two major financial centers between us in Europe. If we join London and Zurich, and they are, of course, now pretty solidly joined. I mean, it's now official, let's say, London and Zurich working together and aligning, and I think that is already a fantastic start, because you've got to have the research, and Switzerland and the UK both have really good reputations and a very solid research base. You've got to have the similar cultural outlook, like you were just saying, and we have that already. That's already there, and both countries are very well respected for that, and also respect each other very much for the shared approach, the shared cultural approach. And then you've got to have a sort of joining up on regulation and policy, and the governments are already talking to each other very closely on very many different levels. And I think that we've already got in place a sort of platform of a common approach, let's say, and where we can look to next, I think, is how we can leverage each other's differences to put those together. So for me, in terms of the life sciences sector, I would say straight away we have quite different healthcare systems with quite different possibilities in each area in terms of population and healthcare approaches. And often that is a very good reason for a Swiss company to look to do something in the UK and vice versa. Let's look to that. Let's look to combine those two different aspects that we have and put them together. And then together we have a package. We have a package of a kind of disparate federated healthcare system and a package of a single payer healthcare system. Let's combine those and talk to companies about doing trials or rollouts in both of those places, and together that makes the equivalent of a much bigger market elsewhere. I think that we don't need to look to compete together against the US or compete against Asia. We can just sit alongside and offer something else.
But I mean, what's the catalyst? I mean, Tim, what are the catalysts?
I guess we need to think about what makes a company have prospects. And so one thing's there about, of course, is a baseline technology that needs to be validated or proven. People, of course, and that's where I think the UK and I'm sure Switzerland equally are very international in their outlook. COVID aside, going and traveling to places and being open-minded, and the experience I had for 4 years going to Switzerland every week and spending time there and collaborating was very positive. Again, I think everyone's here talking about the cultural mindset and some similarities there. Perhaps some differences on what constitutes good food in certain areas, but that's another conversation. But I think these are the basic ingredients, and of course it is financing, and that's where I think there is again that similarity in outlook, where there are pools of capital available, not perhaps the big pools, but there are pools of capital available.
But I mean, but Peter, is it top-down catalysts or is it bottom-up? We've lost you, Pete. You're on mute.
I guess I'm struggling to understand what you mean by catalyst.
Well, just something that gets things going, you know?
I guess in my mind, I'm asking: is there actually something missing already between the two countries? I mean, my experience is very much like that they work very effectively together, you know, already. So I guess I'm almost questioning: is there a catalyst missing? I mean, it's already kind of up and running.
But I mean, but what we're really saying is, with the substantial change comes this word substantial opportunity. With the opportunities that are coming, how do you live in this new world? You know, is there another club to be formed, the Anglo-Swiss, I don't know, catalytic club, or is there you know, when change happens, things rearrange themselves. Do we catalyze and make it rearrange it in an organized way, or do we just let it fly, you know? Because I mean, the government clearly has some ideas. I don't think we're all clear what those ideas are, but there's some ideas, but often we don't really see those ideas. They're somewhere, but the populace like us don't see it. So I mean, back to Sarah, what are there some practical things landing on the table that's gonna drive change, or is it just up to us to let natural entropy occur?
I've got a funny anecdote. When I was working for Sanofi in Paris, it was when the Brexit vote happened, and I was invited to the British Embassy as a representative of French industry to talk to the British minister about what did Britain need to do differently in this new post-Brexit world. And the message I had was, as Sanofi, what interested us about the UK was the quality of the science, and that they had to make sure they kept the quality of science up, and they had to invest, they had to replace any European money that was lost with British money, and that was going to be what the driver was for us. So it's just an interesting anecdote. So I think, to me, it all comes down to the quality of the science, and I think that we have hugely strong human capital. Both countries have hugely strong human capital, and I think you can get money if you've got good science and you've got good people. It's not difficult to get money. You just need to be clever about how you go about it. You know, so I think we're perfectly capable and intelligent enough to get money, and we can build you know, strong local champions. It's not, I don't think it's that difficult, to be honest. I think we have all the ingredients. I think what's interesting about Switzerland is they've kind of been an acceptable neutral party between China and the US, so you could pretty much do deals all over the world from Switzerland, and it wasn't a problem. And maybe the UK will be able to shift more to become more Swiss-like and more perceived as neutral and more able to do, you know, deals all over the world. But I agree. I think we already have lots of strong connections. Maybe it could be more structured and more effective. But I think there are lots of existing mechanisms through which, you know, the two ecosystems are very strongly interrelated, and they're both very, very strong. You know, definitely the hotspots in Europe. So yeah, I'm not sure I see a huge challenge.
Because there's a small group, I'm going to open it up to other angles, because Sarah's jumped in there. So I'm going to let Michael jump in, because, you know, Michael, when we first got together, you've obviously, and I think Helen, you said Michael's got some strong opinions on doing things together differently. Michael, what's your comment?
I'm not sure I have strong opinions to do it in a certain way. I think my encouragement to everyone on both sides of the channel is really to engage and be open to think, what is it that arises in new opportunities. I like to hear all the voices that say we can do more, and the UK is changing and is more free to do what may be fostering collaborations. But what I'm looking for is advice and insight from people that are more familiar with both sides of the aisle or the channel here, how to exploit it. And when I say how to exploit it, I said before to Helen, it's not about whether we bring more companies to move from Switzerland to the UK or vice versa. For me, it's much more interesting to ask the question, how can we be most effective in working together and exploiting the strengths that you have now described, I think, nicely, and maybe also jointly ensure that we can create value and keep on holding on to this value as we move longer than we did in the past. Certainly, it's an issue for Switzerland and probably for most European countries, and to some extent also for the UK, that in many ways we are generating innovation and we bring it to a certain level, and then there is a certain tendency that Americans take over or Chinese take over or somebody else is taking over, and then the value creation frankly is done in other hands. And I feel like the proximity, the cultural closeness, although I do see clear differences, could possibly allow to use the current new situation to be exploited. Yeah.
And I think the new situation needs to be inserted into the mass changes occurring in the world. And I mean, if we take the hypothesis, Sarah's hypothesis, Tim, that we've got a lot of smart people in universities, so it'll be all right. I mean, is that right, Tim? There's plenty of money, isn't there?
Not just universities, we've got really well-trained industry people. We've got fantastic talent on both sides.
So Tim, we got plenty of money. We got everything.
I think all the building blocks, all the elements are there, and I think if there is and I think I agree. I don't think there's a fundamental issue at play here. I think it's all about opportunity, and the B word provides that. And I think without building protectionist structures, because that would be counterproductive, I think, given what's happened, if you can find a way of facilitating to make sure all these good bits, the academic pieces, the translational elements, especially in the UK, and the money and all this, if you can find a way to facilitate that, that's only a good thing, but in a way that isn't protectionist and of self-interest. So it gives both countries the ability to look with 360 degrees available, not just one way or the other. And I think
in the words of Morecambe and Wise, we've got all the right notes, but not in the right order. So I'm going to bring in another opinion here. Nicholas, welcome, Nicholas Drager. Nicholas has been on one of our events before. Listening to this, Nicholas, what's your opinion?
I agree with what's been said before. I think there is a lot of great brain power floating around in the two countries. I think, without wanting to be again too generalist about this, I think the attitudes, research and development attitudes in Switzerland and the UK are very much less risk averse than they are in other parts of continental Europe. There is much more of a, in my view, much more of a commercialization view taken by researchers and developers in the countries. So let's get a damn product on the market rather than dreaming up some esoteric bit of research that might or might not give us a Nobel Prize at some stage in the future, that sort of idea. Some of the critical areas, though, that we do need to address, and I think Britain exiting Europe has sort of highlighted this, is how do we work on harmonizing regulatory systems and manufacturing regulations and quality assurance and all that sort of good stuff, because Switzerland in Europe has been a little bit of an island for a long time. We have our own regulatory processes, our own quality assurance requirements and all that sort of stuff. Now that Britain's floating off into the middle of the Atlantic, we need to actually think about how we can actually get the two countries to come together and harmonize that, so that it makes it easier to actually create more of that downstream value add that we say, oh, well, yeah, let's go and do it in America or China. China's a bit of a tricky one. If you want real value add, maybe China's not the first port of call, but certainly the USA. If we want to retain more of the value add in Europe, then we need to find ways of actually bringing the downstream manufacturing, as I say, manufacturing regulations, quality assurance, all that sort of stuff into the same boat, so that we can actually create a more unified market.
Yeah, bringing in Andrew, I see Andrew Shindler. I mean, Andrew, I saw you nodding there. Andrew's one of our friendly lawyers. I mean, Andrew, you were nodding at the word regulation, I think.
I think that's key to this. Once you get more mature companies with products on the market, whether they be medicinal products or medical devices, in the research, I think research, both countries are able to sign up to all the EU programs. But in terms of regulatory, unfortunately, the hands are still somewhat tied, because Switzerland has all these mutual recognition agreements with the EU, which is developed over the years, which has meant trade between the UK and Switzerland has been fine because we've been part of the EU. But now with Brexit, we're not. Now we've agreed this trading cooperation agreement, and if next week you might read an article by me in Pharma Forum in which I talk about that, the only bit of mutual recognition is on GMP, pretty much. There's no mutual recognition of medicinal products as a whole. There's certainly no mutual recognition of devices. And although the UK and Switzerland, as Helen probably knows all about, has a number of agreements between them, including a trade agreement signed in 2019, unfortunately, they can't really go further than the UK's got with the EU. So they've got the mutual recognition on, on GMP, but they can't have recognition on devices at the moment because Switzerland can't sort of blow its deals with the EU, and the UK really can't do much more with Switzerland than it's got with the EU. So we do have that. That said, we do have free movement in the sense that goods can be duty-free and tariff-free across the markets, assuming they meet the origination rules, which applies both EU, UK, and UK, Switzerland. I think the UK and Switzerland, they've got a memorandum of understanding. They've got 9 different trade deals covering also, or 9 different deals, several of which I think are on trade and 2 are on less tradey type things, more social things. I think they do £33 billion worth of trade between the 2 countries the last year. 20 million in goods and 13 in services, something like that. So there's huge trade, and I think a lot of goodwill between the countries. But the problem is the regulation. And I am a big Remainer, but as we get more into Brexit, I think we all become a bit more Brexiteer after we see what happened with the vaccines. So I guess it's a bit frustrating that the EU and the UK couldn't have agreed mutual recognition on devices and products, and that therefore wouldn't have extended to Switzerland. So I think that is the main hurdle to overcome.
Good point. I mean, just stirring out, Helen, reaction from the government.
Oh, thanks. couldn't possibly comment. No, what I can say is that there is most definitely a willingness on both sides to look at where there are opportunities to align more closely within the confines of what you've just described, the hands being tied and having to be careful. We are still, nobody's going to shift us on tectonic plates to the other side of the world. We're still going to be both countries that are very geographically close to the EU, and the EU is still going to be a significant market for both countries as well. And none of that is going to go away. So yes, there's an institutional framework agreement to sort out between Switzerland and the EU right now, and that may affect certain things. Yes, there's certain things still to be decided between the UK and the EU, and in that triangulation, everybody has to be careful about everybody else. But even when those discussions are sorted, the EU is still going to be there. It's still going to be next door. It's still going to sit geographically between our 2 countries as well. So as long as we're not flying, then we still have to go through the EU to get from one place to the other. All of that will remain. So I think we just have to kind of face up to the fact that that's a sort of a confine within which we will always have to work. And where we see opportunity is that both the UK and Switzerland have always been willing to look for the sort of little gaps in the hedges and use them and fill them. And I think that we may want to see down the line some huge overarching regulatory alignment between the UK and Switzerland. Maybe that's a little bit of a pipe dream. On the other hand, here, there, over there, it will be always, I think, possible to find little ways to inch closer. And if I come back to Sarah's point about the human capital, I mean, And I think, was it you, Tony, that talked about a tunnel between the UK and Switzerland with people? I think there's an example, is that what was one of the first things that was decided in Switzerland with regard to movement of people was that it was too important to keep that freedom of movement of people. And so Switzerland created a special quota for UK nationals. It's the only country that Switzerland has done that for, given its own quota. Okay, it's just temporary while a more long-standing agreement is reached, but nonetheless that shows clearly that it's really important, where there are possibilities, to just put something in place, and then that bit plus that bit plus that bit all adds up to greater ease of doing business and moving goods and people between the two countries, and finance and talent and solutions.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I mean, bringing other people in. I mean, Peter, have you got anything else to say? Or, I mean, is it pragmatic, Peter, that we've just got to get on with it, or is there?
Always.
Always.
Yeah, no, I have a couple of thoughts, and they're two different subjects which I'd really like to bring to the group. So one, just building on what Helen was saying around the movement of people. I'd be interested to hear if there may be the quotas and that sort of paperwork there in place, but I think there's also an emotional component, right? And I witnessed this firsthand. You know, Swiss nationals in the UK, they left the UK because of the uncertainty. So, you know, are we, like I said, even though there are quotas there and it's open for the free movement of people, is there actually an emotional component here that's making people more reluctant to move between the two countries? So I'll stop there and I'll hold my other thought for another time. But any thoughts on that?
I mean, let's bring Christoph in. Christoph, you're an entrepreneur who works in both worlds. What's your thoughts? Christoph, you got your...
Switch back to mute.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that point as well, because me being in Switzerland, partially our company here and partially in Cambridge, we had exactly that question. And we realized it's the uncertainty of kind of how things will play out and how it will change the regulation. That plays on the emotions, and that makes people think twice before making decisions of moving back and forth. Because when you actually dig into the regulations right now, it seems, well, not everything seems completely clear yet on movement of people. And right now you can work with a lot of exceptions. I mean, now we just heard from our immigration lawyer, anybody who's been in the UK in the last 6 months is welcome to apply for pre-settlement status. But now for example, we have interns we would like to move there. And the question is, does it apply to them as well? And one intern said, well, actually, I visited the UK 2 months ago. Can I go? Can I not go? So a lot of uncertainty, I guess. And obviously, as a startup, we'll just play creative and pragmatic. But I think the more senior people are, the more serious these type of decisions are.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely true. I mean, can I bring in, who have we not heard? We've got a couple of people who, Edward, I don't know whether we've got an empty chair. I'm not sure whether
he had an emergency. All of a sudden, he had to rush off too,
and Tim
had to
that's Amazon.
have a quick exit as well.
We know that's Amazon. They're always at the door. You know, that's the problem. You don't have Amazon in Switzerland, do you? Or do you? No, you don't. Oh my God!
But you have Galaxus.
We have Amazon every day. Michael? I mean, any comments from you? We haven't got too many people to ask questions from, Graham. I don't know whether you can follow.
This is us.
This is us. I mean, Michael. I mean,
I also saw that Lutz Peter has disappeared. He was here
as well.
I would suggest that we come to conclusion in a minute, because I think there's not too many of us and we've been together now. But I mean, Michael, I mean, what's your, what would you like to see happen to the future?
Well, I think it's at least two things that I would like to see is that on one level we can continue these type of discussions involving and bringing in more people. Maybe everybody grabs 2 people for next time, because I think your format is indeed helping to bring together people that didn't know each other yet. And even though it's a fairly small group, I value that this is all people that really know both sides and know the culture of both sides, have businesses on both sides, and so this is perfectly well the type of people I wanted to connect with and wanted to see. The other element is maybe to find a forum where we can start either work in the format of a working group, whether we can identify one or two topics we would like to deepen this discussion with concrete actions, so that we can say, okay, here is an area where we think we can strengthen the relationship, or here is a platform that we can either exists already and we can use and broaden, or we can establish that. We do this from our perspective, from a Swiss Biotech Association, in all kinds of topics. We have working groups addressing talent issues. We have working groups dealing with financing with the industrial biotech sphere. We have the same across the universe, and I could easily see that we can help here to build on this topic that we have the focus on today. But I'm completely open. I just would like to reach out to the people in this forum to see how they see concrete steps, because I know we could continue to talk. We could address what is strong, what is stronger if we build on it. But I think we need to be a bit more concrete.
We should continue our journey together, but not use the B word.
Yeah, I agree. I learned that. Because it actually excludes the other people as well that you might want to get involved. Yeah.
I don't know what you think, Andrew. Andrew Shindler. But have you got your mute on, my friend?
He's talking.
No, I don't think I have. I was going to just make an observation on the couple of the last points. Again, from a slightly regulatory point of view. First of all, on people, there's a temporary agreement between Switzerland and the UK on services mobility, which is for professional people to move across. So, I mean, I haven't studied that agreement, so whether it applies to interns or not, I don't know. But there's certainly, quite a lot of scope there. And then the other thing, in terms of collaboration and research, which I think is quite interesting, is the UK signed up to Project Orbis, which is an FDA-administered program, which is Canada, the US, obviously, Canada, Australia, Switzerland, Singapore, and Brazil, which the UK has joined about approving cancer treatments. And then there's the Access Consortium, which was Australia, Canada, Singapore, and Switzerland, which the UK has now come in as an observer, and it's going to be actually now a full participant as of Brexit. So there's two things there, which are groups of countries coming together which aren't EU, which Switzerland's in, and the UK's joined, which I think is great.
Well, I think just knowing about these, Andrew, is helpful, because I mean, to most of us, this is new news. So, I mean, this is very much appreciated. Graham, I think
Nick, I think Nick's got something to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up what you just said, Tony, and what Andrew's been saying, and also what Helen's been saying, because I've got a company that is headquartered in Switzerland, has an affiliate company in the UK, but sources a lot of its products out of Germany. The API from Germany. So you can imagine the glorious regulatory and legal issues. Oh, and we are planning on setting up an operation in Austria. So there you go. Let's get as complicated as we possibly can get. So I would love to have a group or a point of call where one can actually gather this information, because I've learned a lot of stuff, a lot of points today from Helen and from Andrew. But I don't think a lot of the entrepreneurs will know these issues or know whom to call to find out about these details. And I think that is incredibly important if you are wanting to expand your innovative project and build it out, rather than just sort of buggering off to the US all the time as the so-called easy way out. But if you're going to set it up and build it within the European context, you need to have an idea of what is actually going on with all these regulations and statutes and so on. But I think it also points to the fact, and this is maybe very blue sky, it points to the pressure that is on, I would imagine, the UK and Switzerland, the regulatory authorities et al., to really start working on all these, to getting rid of these temporary measures and really getting more fixed measures in place to really reduce the gumming up of the whole system. that has occurred, because when Brexit was going through, all of the people in my company, and we're a small company, it took a hell of a lot of farming around to try and find the right information, right advice, right guidance, and all of this. We've got it all set up, but it is a stress. And if you are a young entrepreneur like Christoph and so on, it's a stress that I think you can do without. It would be nice to have one port of call where you can go for the information.
Absolutely.
Maybe just quickly, two observations we made on that is the UK Gov website is an amazing resource. I mean, the people involved with that, it's really amazing how up to date it is, how easy it is to find things and apply for things. On the other hand, in Switzerland, we realized there's much more on relations with UK, it's much more a waiting attitude. A lot of experts or advisors we talk to, they're like, we don't know what's going to happen. We know there's some preliminary things, but just wait. And I think it also comes to a Swiss approach that obviously sometimes you just, we'll sort it out later, pragmatism. But obviously we always have, most of the time we have to go to kind of UK resources because they also probably make the decisions on what will happen in the future.
Well, I'm an engineer and I have a very low patience threshold, so I like to get things sorted out.
I like that. I like that. Now, Graham, I think we should wind up, really, Graham.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic group of people, and to have a brainstorm.
Thank all our speakers.
And thank everybody. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming along.
I think we're going to keep this on our radar, keep working with our friends at Swiss Bio, and we're going to come back. So, Graham, any last words from you, my friend?
Well, we're working with a very good Swiss company called Biotech Gate, and they've got their Biotech Gate digital forum. It's actually free to sign up to, but we can actually, Tony and I have got a deal where we can get our members a free upgrade, so you get all the partnering benefits that a premium subscriber would get. I mean, it's quite early stage Biotech Gate, but it is a week of partnering. It's the week of the 3rd of May, so put that in your diaries. We are looking for interviews. We're going to do something called the XY factor. So we want to put together some early stage companies and have a little bit of a competition, basically to get some young innovative companies noticed. And any thoughts or ideas people have for that event? It attracts over 1,200 people, of which a senior level from all around the world. So, everywhere from the US and Asia, everywhere. So, yes, keep an eye out on that.
We have an event with Biocom, a San Diego event.
On the 31st, that's right.
Maybe we should go as Swiss and UK people together.
So we were looking at Christoph, weren't we?
Yeah, and I think we'll go together. So please pass that around. And we'd look forward to seeing you there. And I think that's probably it from me, Graham.
Yes, I think it's really good. I'm sure we've all got things to get on with. So
thanks to everyone, and we'll see you next time. And
okay,
bye for now. Ciao, ciao.
All the best. Thanks,
ciao,
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.